Islam, baby. How you doing, darling? May 7, 1931. May 7, 1931. Many of you want to know what happened. Who did it? Wrong. May 12th. May 12th, 1931. Mr. Millie Eel, Moorish Science Temple of America, a corporation, Chicago, Illinois. Dear sir, kindly acknowledging your receipt of $120 for professional services rendered in the case of Moorish Science Temple of America, a corporation by C. Kirkman Bay versus E. Millie Eel. This is to further state that the verdict was entered in favor of the defendant, which was yourself, E. Millie Eel, by Judge Eberhard in the Municipal Court, Room 913. I was right. May 7, 1931. Case number 1746990. Anybody ever heard of this? Anybody ever read it? Ever seen it? Come up and look at it, if you desire. What this saying is that this is where confusion came in. Kirkman Bay wanted to sue the Moorish Science Temple of America, saying that he was head and he was a supreme grand advisor and Monterey. So, we talking about Moorish American history now. Y'all ready to go deep?
Yes, Lord.
Let's go deep. Remember I said earlier, let me get a drink of my cold drink. My ginger beer. Oh, oh. It's a copy. Original, we'll keep somewhere else because the lawyer said as long as we had the original, we don't have a problem. We can open up both guns. It's not Roger Brewington, man. It's not. Roger Brewington Bay.
No, Roger Brewington.
Brother man. Brother man with the clan.
You're a good seat. Your voice.
Shall we continue? It's a whole lot of things. Shall we continue? Big Terry Bay, you got it? Remember I said earlier that in 1929, August, that Millie Eel was dead centered on doing what the prophet told him to do, going around to the temples and correcting their charter from Moorish Holy Temple of Science of the World to Moorish Science Temple of America. He particularly did that. We did the Moorish Guide and we clocked all of his visits and how long he was there. And we got all them letters to show where he was. He was moving every month. I mean, every week he was moving. In that whole week of office, while he was gone, not the Grand Body, but a group of Moors who was already part of the coup that was planned to move the prophet out, inspired by people like Lomax Bay, to turn the movement around. Now, why? Let me just give you a bit of history so you can follow the logic, the line coming along where we're going. And this took a lot of time to put all this stuff together. Why would anyone want to overthrow the movement? Why would anyone want to destroy the movement or control the movement?
Take charge of the situation?
Yes. And why would they want to take charge of the situation?
So that's where the money is.
That's where the money is? What else?
That's what power and authority is, and that's what the money is.
Okay, you're talking about money. Let's go with power and authority. You say power and authority. What kind of power and authority would we have had to do what with? That was so bad.
Political power.
Say court of government. To unite, who said unite? Dan? You got to see me. Not only that,
To correct the Negro, black, and colored damage that was done to
Yes.
our people.
yes. Remember the Free National Constitution of 1774? The Articles of Association? The prophet says since that Constitution has never been changed, there's no need for the 14th and 15th Amendment. Did he say that? Many people didn't want you to know that Constitution was never changed. Who were these people who didn't want you to know that Constitution was changed? Were they the European nations who put a mark upon the Moors?
Of course, that's received.
They were the European nations who put those marks upon the Moors. They never wanted you to know that it changed. They wanted you to think that you needed the 14th and 15th Amendment for economic reasons, because when you read the Articles of Association, a large part of that is talking about what? Commerce. Commerce is money, molasses, tobacco, all those things that they were growing here for free labor, and we was doing it too. If you check Monroe's Bennett's book before the Mayflower, it tells you that. And many of us own plantations too. So it was and is and will be about the money. So it was to their best economic interest. One of the ones who was one of the main culprits, whom it was suited best to their commerce and monetary issues, was none other than Julius
Rosenwald.
Why? He was,
Jewish Zionist philanthropist.
come on now. He was that, but what was it in the economic sense?
Big.
No.
Hold on now.
Where you want to have this one?
What did you say, Matthew?
Tell him again, Matthews Bay.
He was president of the city.
Yes.
What the Sears got to do with
Sears was the largest catalog retail in the country, if not in the world. You could even buy a house from Sears. And they would ship you the wood, the brick, am I right? The plans, they would ship you everything. Sears was the main one who started catalog retailing. Julius Rosenwald came in after being, you should read about him, Google him you all, after being head of his own clothing tailoring company. That's what he did. He amassed riches with his uncles. And he had the opportunity to come in to Sears as a partner and bought his partner out. So he controlled massive amount of money. He was a multi-billionaire also. He had a strong connection with the Polish Jewish in Chicago. Did you know that Chicago is the largest Polish Jewish community in the world?
Yes.
Also, the name on the back of your questionnaire, Salom Jakowski, is a Polish Jew who had political connections to Julius Rosenwald. Did you know the Field Museum of Natural History and the Museum of Science and History Field is named after Marshall Field? Do you know who put up the money to build that? Julius Rosenwald. Who finances most of your major Asiatic colleges in the South? Julius Rosenwald. Why? So he can control the curriculum, even in Cleveland. He was the bag man for what would be known then as the Trilateral Commission. Dukes and duchesses, people of head estates, bypassed the White House to come to Chicago to see him. He's buried in Rose Hill Cemetery, one of the largest cemeteries in Chicago, that is well guarded. And his name was supposed to be Rohill, named after the person, the European, who owned the land. And they promised him they would name the cemetery after him, but they reneged on him. Now that we've drawn an illustration of Julius Rosenwald, let's find out who his right-hand man was. Who he told all his secrets to. Who changed his socks?
Clark Green.
Clark Green. Now you see the connection, right? So one day the prophet was coming to the temple at 3140 Indiana. He was coming from 3603 Indiana, which is what, 5-6 blocks. When he got there, all his furniture was set out on the ground. And they claimed that it was a joke and unreal. 3140 Indiana housed a lot of political people who was controlled by Julius Rosenwald. One of the political people was Oscar the Priest. But 3140 Indiana, which became known as Unity Hall, was owned by Jews. That was their playhouse. 3 floors with 10 rooms apiece. 3140 Indiana was dedicated to Oscar the Priest and renamed Unity Hall the People's Movement. Then the clubs in Chicago, the different clubs, the Viking Club, this club, these were clubs. Women's Club. Club was popular. Boosters Club also had their office there. But all of them's goal was to get some kind of political power for some money. In order to get this, they had to have connections. They had to know people like today. You got to know the right people. Sometimes it ain't how much you know, it's that you know the right people. Islam? The city of Chicago has always been that way. And you talk about that, and I can't. It's going to take a couple of hours of knowing the right people, especially putting in 20 years as a health inspector for the city of Chicago. I can tell you some stuff firsthand that I've seen. Lomax Bay came from the city of Chicago to Detroit. Many of the people who were heavily involved in the politics of Chicago were also involved in who was feeding them. There's different ways you can get fed. You can get comp from the, they call it the ladies' house, the house of prostitution, which was ran by beginning with Mushmouth Johnson, by Bob, his last name at the Peking House. Hustlers, pimps and hustlers, always had a good grip on Chicago because it was like a brothel town. So you can get comped that way. You can say, come on in, man. You can gamble for free. You know, and you can sit down if your girl ain't ready, or we can get your own girl. Sit down in the parlor, and we'll have the boys play some good old music for you called ASS. Later became known as jazz. Now, Julius was being comped because when his people came in from overseas, he had to have somewhere to take them. And that's where he took them. They gambled, he comped them, and then he also comped them with money. Compensation. He also comped them with money. You should be able to keep your job without going out there hustling for the bone. That's called machine politics. It's called the democratic machine politics in Chicago. Guess who designed it without getting too far off the subject? A Moorish American Muslim. Nope. Peg Leg.
Johnson. William
Dawson. Peg Leg Dawson Bay, who was the Temple's lawyer, who was a student, a protege of Oscar the Priest.
Then they don't took them on.
They don't took him on. So was Louis B. Anderson. Long story. Okay, I said all that to say this. That was enough motive to stop Noble Girardi, because if he had been more successful in getting this information out, the first thing that would have been upset and destroyed was their economic system. That's the first thing. And they wouldn't have it. So how do you control something like that? You control everything he does. You put somebody on to watch everywhere he goes and what he says and what he does. Who was put on Noble Girardi to do this?
Claude Green.
Who said Claude Green? You get a CD? Get your DVD. Claude Green. On top of that, this is something that's going to change your life. Julius Rosenwald comes from that long line, bloodline, and I haven't confirmed it, but I got really close, our Achilles. They knew that the prophet was coming. They knew it. They knew who he was, and they knew he was coming, and they knew what he was coming to do. To stop him meant everything to them. Okay? So what Julius Rosenwald did, he put Claude Green Bay on. Claude Green Bay was the manager of Unity Hall 3140 Indiana. Got it? So he's the one who told the prophet, come on in here, we'll give you an office. Y'all can meet in the basement. The church is meeting upstairs. The prophet said, okay. Because 3140, believe it or not, was not the first place where the prophet met the people at. Did y'all know that? Kirkman Bay knew it. He got a collection of guys. PlayStation, whatever. Okay? So, it was to their best interest. So as Claude Green began to play interference, he galvanized a few other ones that he could recruit and help him. Some of them were Sister Martha Delville from the north side, known also as Whitehead Bay. You got it. Whitehead Bay. Lomax Bay. So they were working on the inside to overthrow the Moorish Science Temple of America and make the coup a reality. How did Kirkman Bay come into the Moorish Science Temple of America? Does anyone know that?
Well, the sister introduced her.
Who said it, janitor?
I did.
That's close.
The sister
So who in,
introduced
what sister?
Sister Delville.
Yes, sir. She introduced Kirkman, New Jersey. So he sent them the letter and said, they're coming to you next to recruit more people for His Majesty's Army. So by some kind of international legislation, he was able to carry a gun. So he tried to intimidate. He came back to Chicago and tried to intimidate Milley Hill and the Moors